We can put C1 up on the screen. This is a tear sheet from Axios. This is a Barak Ravid story. The headline is Trump holds Situation Room meeting on Iran nuclear deal negotiations. Trump reportedly held a meeting yesterday morning in the Situation Room about the ongoing nuclear deal negotiations with Iran. The high-level meeting with all of the Trump admin's top NatSec and foreign policy officials was focused on discussing the U.S. position in the next round of talks planned for Saturday, according to those sources. Now, those talks are being led by Special Envoy to the Middle East, Steve Witkoff, who is somebody that Donald Trump trusts very, very much. According to this Axios report, quote, J.D. Vance and Steve Witkoff think diplomacy could lead to a nuclear deal and think the U.S. should be ready to make some compromises in order to get it. Other senior members of the administration, including Rubio and Mike Waltz, are highly skeptical and support a maximalist approach to the negotiations. Krystal, interestingly enough, we've started to see the argument, actually Eli Lake made this argument in the Free Press yesterday, that what is emerging from the Witkoff camp looks a hell of a lot like the Iran nuclear deal negotiated by the Obama administration that Donald Trump sort of famously scrapped. And I've started to see arguments from Iran hawks that are appealing to Donald Trump on this basis, saying, do you want to look like you are Obama, that you are just copying Barack Obama a couple of years later and trying to kind of goad him out of the deal that Witkoff seems to be intent on getting. Witkoff himself walked back his comments about nuclear enrichment, saying at one point that, you know, Iran could do minimal levels, that they would be limited to certain levels of nuclear enrichment, and then within, I think it was like 24, 48 hours saying no nuclear enrichment. So there are enormous pressures on the administration right now, and that's where I think it's worth mentioning C2 just very quickly. A couple of top advisors to Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth were put on administrative leave yesterday, including Dan Caldwell, who was basically Hegseth, probably still is, Hegseth's top advisor. He was put on an admin leave yesterday and escorted from the Pentagon following a, quote, leak investigation to include polygraphs, according to Jennifer Griffin, that was launched by Hegseth's chief of staff, Joe Casper, on March 21, after a March 20 New York Times story detailed plans to allow Elon Musk to attend a briefing in the, quote, tank with members of the Joint Chiefs to hear about future China war plans. Caldwell, Krystal, is a guy who comes from skeptical sort of Koch world that has always been very critical of the foreign policy blob, meaning he has always been critical of hawkish neoconservative approaches to Iran policy. And another top advisor to Hegseth seemed to suffer a similar fate, according to Jennifer Griffin and other reporters yesterday. Caldwell is familiar to a lot of people who cover this stuff, but which is why that example stands out. But I have a really hard time separating these two developments, Krystal. It seems like this pressure is coming from a place of is coming from a frantic place.
Yeah, I don't doubt it. I don't doubt it at all. I mean, Caldwell, I've never met him personally. You know, my understanding of his ideology is that he was one of the better and more consistent voices within the entire Trump administration.
Definitely. Yep.
And so you can't look at it as an accident that this guy, all these people are leaking. They're all leaking. But this is the one that you're going to point to, oh, we can't have this guy around. Come on.
Right.
I mean, it feels very targeted. I don't know anything about the other dude that, also got caught up in this or what his ideological inclinations are. But especially as these Iran negotiations are heating up in a way that could be encouraging. I mean, the fact that there's direct negotiations going on, the fact that you have someone who's as pragmatic as Witkoff has seemed to be, who also, by the way, has come under fire significantly from some of these same types, it's pretty clear there's a massive internal battle being waged here. And just to return to the Iranian nuclear deal piece, I mean, the hawks who are trying to sink it by saying you're just renegotiating Obama's deal. I mean, they're not really wrong. I do think that the Trump administration is kind of realizing that the JCPOA, it actually was a good deal. Iran was actually complying. And they're not going to be able to get something that's a lot better than that, because when Bibi came to town, his whole plan was to convince Trump, you need to push the Libya model on Iran, which, of course, no country in the world is going to go for the Libya model after watching what happened to the Libyan leader, Muammar Gaddafi, who was murdered on camera after following the quote unquote Libya model. Something that Trump has talked about before, by the way, when he was trashing John Bolton and saying that he was pushing the Libya model for North Korea. So he knew, at least at one point, that direction was a complete non-starter. Iran is not going to agree to the quote unquote Libya model, but that's what Bibi Netanyahu was pushing specifically to try to blow up these negotiations. Now, we're a long way from being there. As you're pointing out, there are a lot of very sticky issues. There are a lot of internal tensions. There are the Miriam Adelsons of the world who contributed a whole lot of money to the Trump campaign to try to make sure that something like this never happens. Bibi Netanyahu frequently gets his way with this administration and every other American administration in history. So a lot of big question marks, but at least there's a little bit of hope. And it will be a ridiculous outcome if Trump blew up the Obama deal. In my opinion, one of the best accomplishments of the Obama administration, actually. Biden had a chance to get back in, never did. That's on him. He should have right away, as soon as he was elected, gotten back into that deal. He never did. So that's his failure as well. And then it would be ironic if Trump but good, do it, please do it. If Trump ultimately gets back into the something very similar to the original Obama JCPOA deal, I have no doubt he can message it as like, this is totally different and this is way better and art of the deal or whatever. Fine, whatever your ego needs, go ahead and do it.
Well, and there may be some argument there that the sort of regime's the regime's credibility with its own people, they may make an argument that the economy is really weak and that it's weakened the regime's hold over its own people, and so maybe it makes more sense now. But that's actually the argument that some hawks are using the other way around, saying Iran is especially vulnerable right now. But obviously, I mean, there's so much history in the opposite direction, saying that when countries are vulnerable and desperate, that's actually really not the time to try to turn the screws on them when they are unpredictable and eccentric. So let's put, speaking of those pressures, C4 on the screen. This is John Bolton's take. I mean, this Bolton post about Witkoff is just gross. He says, Trump lacks strategy and vision with regard to Iran. While we do not know what Trump has the resolve to do, we do know Special Envoy Witkoff is busy building trust with the Ayatollahs. But the Ayatollahs aren't to be trusted. They have played us for over a decade, accusing Witkoff of trying to just build trust with the Ayatollahs foolishly, like he's some type of idiot. Well, if you're going to make any type of deal ever, it is built on trust, and that has to be the predicate for any type of negotiation. You can trust and verify, to paraphrase Ronald Reagan, John Bolton, but the idea that you can just make a deal with people who don't believe any part of the deal is going to be worth the paper it's printed on is, I don't even know where to begin with this, Krystal. I feel like just
Bolton wants a war. He doesn't want there to be a deal because, I mean, obviously, I do think it's a very negative sign that people like Caldwell are being purged right now in terms of who's winning those internal battles. I think that's a pretty ominous sign. Well, and
did you see in that Jennifer Griffin tweet that this was an investigation that came out of March 20th and March 21st? I mean, it's the timing, I think, is quite. Indeed. Why are we hearing about this now?
And, if he was the one that leaked that, Elon was going to get briefed on our China war plans or whatever, that was a genuine public service. So thank you, sir, if you were, in fact, the one that leaked that piece of information, because that was a crazy, crazy situation. One of many crazy situations that's just we almost forget that it even happened. But yeah, I think it's ominous that whatever forces are trying to purge the more, frankly, America First factions within the Pentagon, I think that is troubling. And I think Trump's increasingly perilous political situation could be read in two different ways. One is he's long thought and said publicly, that he thinks he thought Obama was going to start a war with Iran because it would be good for his reelection prospects, for example. So he might have this, I think, totally idiotic mindset that a war is good for politicians' approval ratings. He also may just look, he loves using war powers, right? That's his tariff justification is some national emergency. His Alien Enemies Act is martial law. He's exploring whether to invoke the Insurrection Act. Obviously, that's also like, sort of wartime or rebellion powers. And so he may also like just the power that comes with being in charge during a war and how that can inure to his benefit. Or perhaps he is intelligent enough to realize that if he thinks he's got political problems now, good luck if you start a war with, that almost no one in the entire country, including your own base, wants to actually see the America involved. And that doesn't mean that, his base, the hardest core, they'll go along with wherever he goes. But the American public overall is not down for this whatsoever. They will absolutely reject some sort of hot war and escalation with Iran.
So before we run on this block, Krystal, some interesting news just hit my inbox, which is, so we mentioned earlier, Steve Witkoff is negotiating in Rome over the weekend with the Iranian counterparts. Actually, we have a press release from the White House that I just got that says Vice President J.D. Vance and the Second Family will travel to Italy and India from April 18th to April 24th. Depending on the timing there, it looks like Vance will be in Italy during these negotiations in Rome that Witkoff is taking part of. And Vance, according to the Barack Ravid report and just what we know of J.D. Vance, is clearly aligned with Witkoff on this question. Some of the dynamics from that Signal chat may be pulled into these discussions about Iran going forward, actually. And that's quite interesting if Vance is sort of dispatching himself, or if maybe he's being dispatched by the White House to go in and be a wingman for Witkoff during these discussions.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. A lot of dynamics to keep an eye on there.
Hey, if you liked that video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to Breaking Points.
If you want to see the rest of Counterpoints, go to breakingpoints.com to become a premium member and get the full uncut show every morning in your inbox and on Spotify.